What's going on, everybody? This is the SI Sooners podcast. Josh Callaway in Oklahoma City, John Hoover in Tulsa, Ryan Chapman in Norman on this wonderful Wednesday, March the 2nd. The calendar has shifted. It's springtime, kind of, in a few weeks, technically, but it's March, so it feels like spring. It's nice outside. It's like 80. It's amazing. March Madness is approaching. Spring football is approaching. The vibes are good, guys, as the calendar shifts over.
1 week after an ice storm. We're 80 degrees. I clicked the air conditioner
Oklahoma.
on today for the first time in several months. So, man, crazy weather.
Yeah, for sure. But that's Oklahoma. And the good news is enjoy the weather now, because the bad news is we've still got one more bout of winter in us, right? That's how this works.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Fourth winter is still ahead.
Yes.
Anytime it gets like kind of warm for like a little while in this time of year, and it's like, oh, it's spring, it's amazing. I think 2018 it would have been the OU football spring game, and OU baseball played Texas that night, which this is late April, and it was frigid. It was so cold, I was like dying. That was the day of the Bob Stoops statue thing at like 8 a.m. and it was like 20. It was so cold. That was obviously in late April. So anytime I get like a little excited, I remind myself of that, because that's still like 2 months away from now. So I try to keep that in mind before I get too excited. But it is amazing weather. It is March, which, like I said, means March Madness is approaching, which is obviously a really fun time. We talked to the Gross Bros in the third segment of the show, so be sure to stick around for that. Basketball, a couple of huge wins last couple times out. We'll talk about that in the next segment. But we got to start off, guys, spring football. It's really close. We actually just a little while ago, before we started recording here, got the official date, March 22nd. That's a Tuesday, right after spring break. So the guys can get like a week to go party, and they're going to come back and have to start working out with Schmitty again. That might be a rough first day. But spring ball coming around, March 22nd. We get 8 coaches tomorrow. That is a marathon. I think the Venable Zoom kind of prepared us for this a little bit. 8 coaches in a row. It's going to be a 2-hour presser. I can go through the list real quick of the guys we're getting. Some of them are for the first time, which is cool. Half of them were for the first time. Let's see, I had the list right here. Todd Bates, Bill Bedenbow, Miguel Chavis, Joe John Finley, Cale Gundy, Brandon Hall, DeMarco Murray, and Jay Valai. So we're getting 8 guys tomorrow. We're going to have all that for you on allsooners.com, all the videos, all the coverage. But guys, spring football, I mean, it's here before you know it in just a few weeks.
We have started at allsooners.com our spring position previews, not a moment too soon, because now we get to talk to 8 coaches about them. We started the offensive line yesterday, defensive line today, defensive tackles today. So, March is here, and we're previewing spring practice for you. The position, the depth chart, the chase, the position competitions going on. Can't wait to talk to 8 coaches tomorrow. I don't think I've ever gone through a football season where I've talked to 8 position coaches in one day. This will be a first for an old guy like me who's been doing this for 100 years. This is a first. 8 coaches? That's a busy day.
Insane.
Yeah, it's going to be wild. Like, last year, we got to talk to everybody, but it was like, hey, this week you're talking to, we get one offensive assistant,
Right.
one defensive assistant, and they just rolled through the Rolodex. The Venables era is here. There's like, screw it. 2-hour press conferences are the norm now. This is just buckle up, boys. I hope you brought your laptop chargers and you're ready to take some notes. Bring the pen and paper, because that won't die on you. But no, it's going to be a ton of fun. It'll be fascinating, the dichotomy that we're going to get tomorrow. A lot of those offensive guys, I think every single one that you named is someone that was here last year. So being able to talk through publicly for the first time some of what were you feeling in those, that week and a half, 2 weeks where there wasn't an established head coach not named Bob Stoops on campus? How has life changed for you now, especially as we dive into the recruiting side of things? How is that going to change their guys now that Lincoln Riley is not the guy at the top of the food chain making the board? So be fascinated to talk to those guys, and obviously whole new defensive staff. So getting to meet those guys for the first time should be a really productive day tomorrow. And I'm sure allsooners.com will be overfloweth with the content if you roll in.
Absolutely. I mean, it is going to be very interesting because, like I said, it's 4 new coaches and then the 4 returning guys. But all of them, it's the first time we've talked. I mean, the 4 new guys, obviously first time ever. But then the 4 new guys, first time since all of this. Lincoln Riley leaving and all, and Venables coming in. So, like you said, Ryan, it's going to be really interesting to get to hear from all these guys tomorrow. And it's kind of hilarious because I referenced it already, but it's 2 hours and it's like, geez, Venables did 90 minutes by himself the other, a couple weeks ago. So it's kind of insane. It puts it in perspective, like an 8-hour coach presser or 8 coach presser is just a little bit longer than what Venables did by himself a couple weeks ago. So it's kind of ridiculous when you put it in that context.
Do you think that they're going to make them hold their phone just in selfie position at the podium the entire time for each guy? Well, it's the hot new TikTok challenge, the Brent Venables challenge.
Yeah, that definitely the underrated part of that. I'll be clearing off the SD cards, making sure the batteries are charged. Because we're going to need some space, and we're going to be at the stadium for a while tomorrow, uploading all that. But it will be all there for you, allsooners.com. All 8 guys, you can watch them in their, completeness on All Sooners.
Let me ask you guys. We all have a pretty good pulse on the finger on the pulse of this team. What are some of the burning questions that you want to get to tomorrow?
I don't know.
The first thing that jumps off is there's a report floating out there from Chip Brown, covers Texas for 247, I believe, that OU's looking now at 2024 for the SEC just due to upfront cash. Do with that what you will. It's just one report. It's coming from a Texas side of things. But I am fascinated to talk to a guy like a Todd Bates, Chavis, those guys on the defensive front specifically of, is just we're going to the SEC at some point enough to get those guys on board? You pair your record at Clemson with that, or are these guys needing, like, what year is it going to be? Does that mean the 2023 class, the SEC thing doesn't really have an impact on those guys because it is a transformation going along the defensive front? And then on the offensive side of things, kind of like what I alluded to earlier, how does assembling your recruiting board change when you've got Jeff Lebby? We've kind of noted this before, but like, especially at wide receiver, right? He likes those really big bodies, not necessarily the smaller burners, which have kind of been Oklahoma's specialty under Lincoln Riley. So how does that stuff change, I guess, as we head into spring? I'm more interested in the recruiting stuff because we'll find out our on-the-field questions in the fall.
I'm kind of interested, I guess, if anything, do we get any kind of drama out of it in terms of the 4 guys back about Lincoln? I mean, it might come up in some. Can any of the guys get goaded into saying something? Because we haven't heard any of them. I mean, the only coach we've talked to obviously has been Venables, who he's got nothing to say really about Lincoln other than a little kind of people read into something. But and then Lebby and Roof, we haven't talked to anybody who has been with the team before and after. So kind of interested to see if anybody has anything to kind of say about that. Maybe not. It's been, it's a few months old now, but who knows? First chance at the podium for some of these guys who might have been a little hurt, a little offended by the way that kind of went down. Do they say something? I'm interested in that.
This just came out 10, 15 minutes ago, so we haven't had a chance to put pen to paper yet.
No, yeah.
And kind of flesh out what story ideas we want to pursue. But one of them that comes to mind is DeMarco Murray, running backs coach. He's got a couple of freshmen coming in that should be dynamic players. How does he feel about those guys? And then another offensive guy. I'd love to talk to each one of the defensive guys about their position and the talent that they inherited and who they feel like is going to be, the front runners, that kind of thing. That's obvious. But I'd like to talk to another offensive guy who's coming back, John Finley. What's the difference between a tight end and an H-back? How does what you're doing now change for you? Does it change nothing? Are your tight ends, so to speak, going to continue to move around in the backfield, flex out, get on the line, go in motion, or is it going to be more of a traditional tight end in Jeff Lebby's offense? There's a lot of questions. There's about 400 million questions that I want to ask, and we get 15 minutes with each guy, so that's going to be going to be like a feeding frenzy. And hopefully those guys get through their answers quickly. Answer the question, get to the next question, because there's going to be a lot of them.
Well, the other thing too with the offensive guys is when you look at it, it's a new offensive coordinator coming in, right? But we've heard that there's an openness of like a Lebby and a Bedenbow to sit down and say, and Cale Gundy, this is what you guys did last year. This is what I do. What do we want to, where are the spots we can marry this to try to make the Frankenstein's monster of Lebby's offense, which has been a top 5 offense in total yardage, the Lincoln Riley offense, which obviously broke efficiency records with Baker, Kyler, Jalen, stuff like that. Like, I'm kind of curious how much collaboration has there been, because it opens up a ton of possibilities of, wow, you could take two offenses that were really good and marry them together. What is that going to look like on the other side of things? That's something fascinating too.
Absolutely. So be sure to obviously keep with allsooners.com tomorrow. Just going to be tons coming out of that. 8 coaches. I mean, that's a lot in one go. And we'll have it all for you on allsooners.com. And obviously on next week's show, we'll be able to kind of dive into everything they had to say, anything of note, which I'm sure there'll be a lot of note. Because again, first time talking to half these guys, and the other half, first time talking to them in a long time. So going to be interesting tomorrow at the stadium in person too, which is just great. Just great to have some in-person stuff tomorrow. Looking forward to that. No chance of technical difficulties like we have with Venables that time. Just I looking at you and we're speaking. It's very nice. So we'll have that tomorrow at the stadium, 2:30 is when that starts tomorrow, the marathon. So looking forward to that tomorrow afternoon. Okay, so some other just kind of housekeeping things with football here before we get into some other sports. Obviously, both basketball teams getting right into the nitty gritty here. But Ryan, I figure I'll go to you here for Under Armour Atlanta real quick. You're at the story on allsooners.com. Just some guys that stuck out. Just kind of recap that for us. How that went for OU fans, what they should be keeping an eye on there.
Yeah, for sure. We had SI All-American staff down in Atlanta, right? I didn't make the trip personally, but John Garcia, National Recruiting Director, Brian Smith, guys I've worked with before who were down there. And the big headline, obviously, is going to be Levius Overton. Made news, right? Reclassifying from 2023 to 2022. His brother is in the mix as far as being in the transfer portal. The Sooners are aggressively going after both of those guys, obviously. So just something to watch as a guy that went out there and just is physically impressive, right? He's everything that he's been billed. There's a reason that guy was an elite prospect in 2023. Then he reclassifies in 2022 and just shoots straight up to the top of those rankings as well. So it'll be interesting to see. But I think the bigger news from this is just, we've talked about it, right? With this staff that Brent Venables is putting together, especially defensively, how is OU's recruiting footprint going to creep from not just Texas into the Southeast, and not just like South Florida, where OU's had some success dating back to Mike Stoops? You kind of already saw that. There were a couple of guys that mentioned Oklahoma. Caleb Downs is the first one. He's a 2023 defensive back. You've got KJ Bolden, who's a 2024 defensive back. T.A. Cunningham, a defensive lineman in 2024. All those guys who talked to our SI All-American staff were like, yeah, I want to get on campus in Norman this summer before I get into the next year of some college football, or high school football, to kind of have Oklahoma in the mix. So it'll be fascinating to see what kind of roots Oklahoma can plant down there, if they can at all. And then you look over the offensive side of the football, you got a couple of big-bodied guys, one a wide receiver, one an offensive tackle. We'll start with the tackle, Wilkin Formby. He's a guy that was just destroying people. 6'7", 300 pounds, long arms, would be a huge win for Bill Bedenbaugh. Just as far as the offensive line's a spot where they've missed a lot of targets, frankly, the last couple of years. When it comes to just, you look at it, they signed 2 guys, right? 2 of their tackles this last year. And then you've got Aiden Williams, who's a big wide receiver, 6'3". He impressed. He was named into the top performers. And he's an interesting case because he's a 2023 kid. He's got 8 offers right now. And his best relationship by far was Ole Miss and Jeff Lebby. So get him on campus in Norman, see what that does. It would just be another trend in those really big-bodied wide receivers that we know Jeff Lebby wants to bring in. Can those guys come in, have that size, and still have the athleticism to be burners for the Sooners? So just interesting to see as the recruiting footprint creeps to the Southeast. Then obviously March 13th, I believe, is when that Under Armour circuit rolls through Dallas, and we'll be there for a bunch of those guys as well.
Yeah, we'll be there March 13th, Under Armour Dallas. I think the next week is a 7v7 pylon tournament coming through Dallas. After that, you got the battle. Is that also a 7v7 tournament?
It's a 2-day tournament with battle, and then the second day of that will be split in time between that and the Elite 11 stuff. Elite 11. So
yeah, that should be fun. We're all gonna be busy. You guys are doing basketball. I'm going to be down there the first weekend, presuming that we don't know what's going to happen with the basketball team in terms of our coverage plans. But I'll be down there. You'll be down there. We'll be sharing duties, interviewing players, coaches, and gosh, March. I don't remember March being this busy, where you've got spring football and all these tournaments coming through, 7v7s and camps and stuff like that. So it's going to be huge, busy.
Yeah, March is packed, and unlucky at least on that front because you sent that schedule, Hoove, and obviously there's these tournaments and these events all like through June practically, and they all just happen to be in Dallas in March when we're already got lots of other stuff going on. We find a way to make it work, but that could have been a little friendlier on the scheduling, but we'll figure it out. It's a big month in March, so allsooners.com the place to be. All right, so from some future Sooners potentially to some former guys, I want to touch on real quick. Scouting Combine. NFL Combine is this week in Indianapolis. It's underway as we speak. I believe it goes to like the 7th is when the last day of it is. It's a big week, obviously, for guys trying to get drafted. I mean, Perry Winfrey, who we talked about before, was big the Senior Bowl. NFL.com had him in their top 50 prospects. He continues to rise. Just curious, you guys' thoughts on what players, I don't know if need a good combine is the right way to put it, but just anybody you're paying attention to. Obviously, OU had 11 invites. We talked about that before. Who do you feel like sticks out as, they probably need to have a good week, to really help themselves out? Perion's already done a lot to help himself out. What about the other guys?
I'll just say, obviously, Perrion has played himself just through the Senior Bowl situation, and his film has played himself into easily the second round, if not the late first round. But here's a guy that's going to be working out in Indianapolis that I think is going to have a fantastic camp. Anytime you go to practice, you watch him play. Anytime you watch him open up, put the pedal to the metal and open it up on a football field, he's making incredible plays. It's Brian Asamoah. He's going to do some things athletically in Indianapolis that are going to really raise some eyebrows. Like, what? Why wasn't he making 15 tackles a game? And then, there's going to come question about his defensive coordinator and his position coach and who did this and what did he learn when he was at Oklahoma? Why is he so athletic? Why wasn't he more productive? Those last 3 games of his final season, what did he do? He had double-digit tackles. And he's unbelievable how good he was those last 3 games of the regular season. So he's a guy that I think that can really make himself some money, at least to a point where I'm not talking about be a first or second round pick, but he can go from a day 3 guy to a day 2 guy. And because of what he does at the combine and the noise he can make at the combine, if he works out, stays healthy, doesn't have any setbacks or anything like that, he'll be one of those guys that GMs in the back of their mind for the next 10 to 15 years will say, oh, remember that dude at the combine? Remember how fast he was? Remember how high he jumped? Remember how quick he was around those cones? He's a guy he's a free agent now. We can bring him in. He'll have a career now in the NFL because of his athletic ability.
Yeah, Brian Asamoah is one of those guys. Nick Benito, another guy that can go out there and wow some people with testing. But the guy I'm looking at is Isaiah Thomas because we know what he meant to this defense, right? What he was able to do both on the outside and then on the interior. But unfortunately, like defensive line's the one spot where versatility in college almost dings you when you go into the draft process as far as projecting you exactly to where are you going to play? Do you have to fit into a 3-4, 4-3, all that stuff? And now there's a new wave, if you pay attention to the coaching carousel, of coaches that come in and basically say, dime package is our base package in the NFL now, having to defend guys like Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, all that stuff. So I think that Isaiah Thomas, we know how well spoken he is. I think once he gets in front of these GMs and these scouts in the meetings and then starts to explain what he sees himself as, how he can affect people, the kind of speed rusher he can be in those dime NASCAR packages, I think he could do a lot for himself this week. And I think that it's just something that we're not going to see a ton of if you're seeing the highlight packages of all of the drills and stuff going on. But I think Isaiah Thomas is a guy that'll be able to do a lot for himself once they start to kind of get to know who Isaiah Thomas the person is, because he always shines and he was productive at basically every spot on the field. He was just asked to do a ton the last couple of years for Oklahoma.
Yeah. Real quick, the schedule, you guys, Thursday is tight ends, quarterbacks, wide receivers will work out. Friday is place kickers. Good luck, Gabe Burkich. Special teamers, offensive line, and running backs. Saturday is defensive line and linebackers, so we'll see a lot of Oklahoma Sooners working out on Saturday, March 5th. And then Sunday is the defensive backs, and you can see all of that stuff. It's all in the afternoon, I think 3 to 10 p.m. on NFL Network, and then the Sunday session is like 2 to 7 or 1 to 6 p.m.
Yeah.
Central Time on NFL Network. So yeah, man, 11 Sooners up there. It's the tied for the second most with Alabama behind Georgia of anybody in the combine, of any school sending guys to the combine. So we're going to be busy. That's all I can say.
Yeah. I mean, it's a big week for obviously everybody there, but I also feel like the skill guys, Mike Woods, I mean, if he wants to get drafted, you got to stand out, find a way to stand out at the combine. Kenny Brooks, kind of, he'll probably get drafted, but, there's a chance to stand out. Jeremiah Hall's like number one fullback on some boards, chance to stand out. It's the case for all of them, but so going to be an interesting week out there in Indianapolis. One last football thing here to kind of tidy up before we get to some other sports. Tony Jefferson keeps on playing. What a career he's had. I mean, the guy went undrafted, which is kind of crazy to think about. I wrote the story on allsooners.com. He was re-signed by the Ravens the other day, and it's crazy looking back. I was like, how did he go undrafted? It's kind of nuts, but he was. Cardinals scooped him up. He was a good player there. Went to the Ravens for a while, and then went to the 49ers last year, tore his ACL, missed most of the season, got picked back up by the Ravens right at the end of the year and was good for like 3 games. He led them in tackles one of the games, and now he's back with the Ravens again for his 9th NFL season. Who, obviously, you covered him. Keeps on playing. Another year for Tony Jefferson. Pretty cool to see. The guy just keeps on battling. He's had a really legitimate NFL career after, again, going undrafted, which is really hard to do.
Yeah, he has had a good career. He's been an underdog story. He's been a guy who, listen, his football IQ is extremely high. Very smart. One of the smartest players, just in terms of being in the right place at the right time, anticipating what's coming, understanding what the offense is trying to do, and then diagnosing it and being in the right place at the right time. He's not just stumbling around out there getting lucky. He knows what's coming. He's very smart, very cerebral. And I think NFL teams can appreciate that and respect that. You see him picking him up through those injuries. And he's still, last I looked, he's still about 5'9", 5'10". He's still not 6'2", 225. You know what I mean? He's a nickel safety who is all over the field, can sniff out things before they happen. And he is an inspiration. He's got to be an inspiration to somebody like De'Aaron Turner-Yell and Pat Fields, as they progress in their football careers. What were they? 3-year starters at OU, 5'9", maybe 5'10". And you wonder, how can you have a 5'9", 5'10" defensive back? Buki Bradley-Hiles was on that list. The guys that we've talked about in the past. Oklahoma's had a lot of them, and Tony Jefferson probably the best of them all.
Yeah, another one of those guys, too, you talk about with Isaiah Thomas, positional versatility. In his 3 years Oklahoma, he played, corner, linebacker, and nickel safety pretty much, and excelled at all of those. But again, kind of plays into, unfortunately, that can be a great asset. It can also hurt you in the eyes of NFL GMs just because they don't know what to do with you. So props to him for not being deterred by going undrafted and all that stuff. And hey, look, maybe he'll get the cherry on top of his sons winning an NBA title as well after getting re-signed. And then it'll just be the perfect offseason for Mr. Jefferson.
Absolutely. So Tony Jefferson back with the Ravens again next year, which is where he had kind of his best years. He was good with the Cardinals too, but in Baltimore there as they try to compete for a Super Bowl next year. It should be a pretty good team if they can be healthy. They were ravaged last season. All right, let's take a time out here. We'll come back. Segment 2, other sports. A lot to get to with men's and women's hoops. And softball just keeps on rolling. Baseball off to a pretty good start as well. We'll talk about that all next up on the SI Sooners podcast.
What's up, guys? It's Kerry with Trade Pros here. We've got a brand new service program coming out this year. It's the new All-Star Service Program. It's only $25 a month. The great thing about it is it's going to save you guys a ton of money throughout the year. Furnace and air conditioning repairs can be very expensive. If you guys need a service call and you're signed up with us, you're not going to have to pay that service charge. The repair is under $500. Trade Pros is going to take care of that as well. Anything over that, you guys are just going to be responsible for 25% of that. Go give us a like on Facebook. Check us out at tradeprosokc.com or give us a call at 405-639-9991.
On Twitter, you can follow SI Sooners at @all_Sooners. Ryan's at Radios Ryan. Who's at Johnny Hoover? I'm at Josh M. Callaway. Our website is allsooners.com. We're a Fan Nation affiliate, part of the Sports Illustrated Network. Okay, mentioned that in the third segment, we're going to talk to the Groves Bros. Episode 4 with them. Great conversation as per usual. coming off, it was a lot easier to talk to them this time than maybe the last couple, because they're coming off a couple of wins this time, a couple of good wins too over Oklahoma State and Kansas State. Or not Kansas State, West Virginia. Kansas State's next in their final 2 home games. The tournament resume is, hanging on by a thread, but they keep winning, so it's still alive, certainly, for this Oklahoma team. Guys, they had to have these games, and they got them, and now you move on. Huge game on Saturday, but, job done so far. A couple of good wins against Oklahoma State and West Virginia.
Yeah, and it'll be fascinating. So during this huge losing spell, if you look at the bracket experts, Lenardi, Prom, all that stuff, they hung on. Then Harkless gets hurt. They finally string these 2 wins together, and now they are nowhere to be found. They're not on the bubble. They're not in the last 4 out. They're not in the last 8 out. So it'll be fascinating. I think if you're an Oklahoma fan, it's really simple, right? Beat K-State. You're the 7th seed in the Big 12 tournament, so you don't have to play in a night 1. I think if you lose to K-State, you're going to have to make one heck of a run in Kansas City for NCAA tournament hopes. Beat K-State, and then we're still waiting on seeding. Right now, it looks like if Kansas Tech and Baylor all win out, Kansas will be 1, Baylor will be 2, Tech will be 3, tiebreaker stuff. And then it's a tall task, but you beat Baylor, you're probably making your case. If not,
probably in.
Yeah. You're probably prepping for an NIT run, and it's just you have to hope that there's not just carnage in the small conference tournaments. But the most encouraging thing is whether it's an NCAA tournament run or an NIT run, they're getting contributions from everyone right now. It's a full team effort, and that will serve them well in Kansas City if they can continue that, and it'll serve them well either in the NIT or a first round Hail Mary, probably first 4 in type thing in the NCAA tournaments. They're trying to just build some momentum for next year.
You guys, watching that game last night, the 72-59 over West Virginia, I noticed a couple of things. The second half, Tanner Groves, we'll ask him about it later on the podcast, but Tanner was really dialed in, scored 15 of his 17 points after halftime. And you saw kind of a switch, I think, flip a little bit. And I don't know if it was Porter Moser talking to him at halftime about being more physical, but he came out. He looked like Rocky answering the bell last night after halftime. There was a time early in the second half where he got the ball at the top of the key and his defender got right up in his face. And instead of taking a step back and looking for a pass, he put his shoulder into the guy, and the dude was waving his arms around, and the guy's arm, I can't remember who the defender was, but the guy's upper arm was like hitting Tanner in the face, and Tanner just kept pushing him forward, and then he put the ball on the ground and got the foul call. And from that point forward, you saw Oklahoma say, that's right, we're supposed to be out here playing physical. We're supposed to be out here doing this thing. And then you saw the dunk by Tanner.
Great dunk.
Was super emphatic. Is doing one of these things, we get so excited. And you also saw him put the ball on the floor and take it around a guy under the basket and do kind of a reverse backward layup behind his head. And then what does he do at the end of the game? He hits a couple of threes. He is, to me, he's becoming a significant, not just statistical leader on this team, but kind of a focal point, kind of a leader by example. He's showing other guys, this is the way we're going to play. I scored 35 against Kansas last year in the NCAA tournament. This is the way we're going to play. It really kind of stood out last night. Now, can he do it, on a night-to-night basis? We've seen games where he scored a bunch and then the next game he hasn't scored a bunch. But as he said on the podcast, which you'll hear coming up, if I take care of my defense and I get after it rebounding, the scoring will come. And I think we saw that last night. He got after it. He got his attitude going. He started pushing guys around. He got more physical. And I think his teammates responded around him.
Just a programming note. If you guys are not watching the podcast at John Hoover Media on YouTube, you're missing him literally try to step-by-step recreate all of these things happening on the basketball court. It's perhaps the greatest development in the history of the SI Sooners pod. That's all.
There awesome. You go. Yeah, I mean, it was obviously a couple of wins they had to have. I mean, to be completely fair, OSU is a team that's not making the tournament, or they're not even eligible. And, they're kind of, the season's basically over. West Virginia, that looked like a team that had given up. Bob Huggins was even, getting mad. He was like, yeah, we're just kind of ready for this to end. So they played well and they got wins they had to have. But now, winning in Manhattan, which is something that OU hasn't done in forever, is going to be very challenging, especially with that Elijah Harkless. So really tough game coming up on Saturday. And also, real quick too, it's a tired conversation, but OU fans at these games have been really horrible this year. Like, it's kind of gotten crazy. Ryan, the crowd last night was brutal. And against Oklahoma State on Saturday, that's an 11 a.m. game. It's Bedlam. It was a pretty good crowd. Like 30% left before the overtime. What are we doing? I don't even understand what's happening right now. So I just felt obligated to touch on it because it's been like crazy, like abnormal, even bad by OU standards. I feel like the last month.
Yeah, in both overtime games, Texas and Oklahoma State, as soon as the overtime happens, you see everyone flooding to the top. And I get that the only bathrooms are at the top of the Lloyd Noble Center, right? But I'm sorry, if you go to the bathroom and then you're just standing at the very, very top, you're not adding to the atmosphere. And then if you leave for an overtime period, what are you doing? I don't get it. I don't understand. But the whole thing too.
I only signed up for 40 minutes of this crap. I'm leaving.
I'm against.
This isn't football.
I'm against free basketball. That is basketball inflation, and I won't stand for it.
I mean, college OT takes 10 minutes. So I don't even buy if you want to do the Texas game was on a weeknight and it was a later tip, what, I don't even buy that, but whatever. OSU was 1 p.m. on a Saturday. Why do you have to leave 10 minutes before it's over? It was crazy to me. It was absolutely nuts to me. And OU fans got ripped apart on Twitter for that. And deserved it. I mean, that's embarrassing, quite frankly. So we'll see if it gets better next season, because that was it, unless they have NIT games there. But rough stuff, rough look for OU fans this year, especially recently with those home games. Women's team got revenge on K-State on Saturday. Taylor Robertson hits the buzzer beater. Another close win right at the wire. But you don't have to apologize for winning close games. They're wins. But they've, it's been kind of one right after the other. They have Bedlam tonight in Stillwater, and then they'll finish up with their home game on Saturday. Doing their thing. The latest bracket reveal had them right at the edge, 16 out of 16 as far as the teams that get to be a top 4 and get to play their first 2 rounds at home. They're right on the cusp of that. So they're playing really meaningful games right now to try and make sure they can get these games at home. But a good win on Saturday, and they'll look to keep it going.
Yeah, I think, was it last week or week before, we talked about how, hey, they've got Texas Tech coming up. That's again, and they lost. They lost to Texas Tech, who is a bad team at the bottom of the Big 12 standings. Oklahoma State is a bad team at the bottom of the Big 12 standings. They can't muck around with this. They can't play poorly. They can't play without energy. They forget about who they're playing. This is a team that needs to reach a level every time they take the floor. And if they don't, I think talent-wise, I think they can be had by poor teams. We've seen it in the past. Texas Tech is a great example. So they need to come out and take the fight to Oklahoma State quickly, put this thing away quickly. They're the better team.
Yeah,
I think they've got the better coach. I think it's an opportunity for Oklahoma State for Oklahoma to make a statement. So just, don't come out and toy around. Don't come out and don't take them seriously. Do whatever your pregame routine is, whatever you eat normally before a game, stick to that routine. You know what I mean? Don't act like just because it's Oklahoma State and they're at the bottom of the standings that it's going to be an easy win.
Right.
Just do what you've been doing. And if you need to make another buzzer beater, which would be, I think, their 5th buzzer beater of the season to win a game, that would be remarkable, but, stick to the plan.
Yeah, well, and that applies to both the games they've got left, right? Going to Bedlam tonight, Wednesday, and then coming back to host a Kansas team on Saturday. This isn't Bill Self's Kansas team, guys. It's the women's team. They need to take care of both those, especially because, like you just mentioned, Josh, they need all this momentum rolling into the Big 12 tournament, because if things break the right way, guys, for the first time in a very long time, this is a team that can win the Big 12 tournament. But at the very least, they need to be playing in the final so that they can wrap up that, yes, you're hosting in the NCAA tournament and get that going. And then just an interesting programming note, sounds like might want to be there Saturday. The senior night might be interesting. Who goes through it, who doesn't go through it. That apparently is still pretty up in the air, which is a really good indication of who might be rolling back next year and what kind of squad Oklahoma will be able to build on if a lot of those pieces come back for one last ride in Norman next year. So might want to get out there, because I think it could be pretty telling as far as what Jenny Bronchek's able to build on next year if this whole team's rolling back.
I'll say this real quick, guys. All you need to know about Oklahoma basketball is Baylor dominates the regular season, clinches the regular season with still a week to go. Right? I think they're in first place, running away with it. They got swept by Oklahoma. I mean, for the first time in 100 years. So this OU team's got a chance. Don't write them off.
For sure. No, I mean, I don't really know what to expect at all. I mean, if you told me they make quick exits in Kansas City and the big dance, I'd believe it. If you said they make a deep run, I kind of believe that too. I'm not going to really be surprised by anything that happens with this team over the next couple of weeks, because they just play so many close games. They're clearly a good team, but they play with fire a lot. So we'll see what happens this week. And next week in Kansas City, Ryan and I will be there. We'll be covering the women as well. Both tournaments are in Kansas City simultaneously. Hopefully the tip times are friendly to us throughout the week, and we can catch both games completely, in both of us in full. But we'll be there in Kansas City next week for that as well. All right, over to the Diamond Sports here real quick. Softball stays undefeated, 15-0, right, I believe, after going undefeated at the Mary Nutter Classic. Great wins out there. Were really tested. Tennessee had them beat pretty much.
3 times.
Coleman that walk-off. Yeah. Jada Coleman that walk-off. They beat Utah on a pitcher's duel. Jocelyn Allo did not get the record. Basically wasn't allowed the chance to get the record. I mean, how many walks over the weekend? 10. My God. And she was getting annoyed. I mean, she was just throwing her bat like whatever. It was nuts. I mean, I was doing other things, baseball and what have you, and it was like I'm getting the updates, and it was like Allo walks again. It was like, geez, has she even hit in this entire tournament? But they got through it. They won the games. They're still undefeated, and now she can try to get it at home on Monday.
Yeah, she'll get it. She'll get there, and she'll set the record so high it may never be broken because of the COVID year, and you get the extra year and all that stuff. But you could absolutely feel the frustration, and frankly, we've got a story ready to go right on our website. Jocelyn Allo breaks home run record, separates from Lauren Chamberlain. We've got it ready to go, man. And so every at bat, me and Ryan we're dialed in. We're like, okay, this thing's ready to post. Here's the little backstory. Here's a little background. This is going to be, we're hovering. Ball 4. We're just like, we're frustrated. She's frustrated, I'm sure, but we're frustrated as, sports writers back here in Oklahoma. And at one point I was in the kitchen listening on to Chris Plank on my app, on my phone. And I'm doing something. I'm washing my hands or something. I'm like trying to listen because of the noise, the background noise. I'm washing my hands. And he says, ball 4. And I go, all right, that's it. That's gutless. That's just gutless. Because the base runner ahead of her had gotten on. Can't remember who it was. Might have been Jada Coleman batting 9th. Then Allo hitting leadoff walks, I think on 4 pitches. And who's behind her but the hottest hitter in the country, Tiara Jennings. Yeah. And I said, now you're just being gutless. Now you're being afraid and you're scared. And I don't want to hit the home run against me. It was so pathetic. And what happens the next pitch? Triple damn play. I said, well, that shows what I know about softball. I mean, that was obviously the smart play to not pitch to Allo. So that was the damnedest thing. You go from searching for the home run record to boom, it's triple play. What?
Yeah, she went, I think it ended up being 3 for 8 for the weekend over 5 games with 10 walks and a hit by pitch. So the on-base percentage is bonkers. And I think it sucks too, because in game 2, she had it. If she hits the ball a foot further, if there's a 2-mile-an-hour breeze blowing to outfield, it was gone because it hit right under the like yellow cap on the fence. And like everyone had poured out of the dugout and then had to like funnel quickly back into the dugout once it hit the wall. I think that just like builds on the frustration that she had it. And then after that, no one just even tried to pitch to her the rest of the weekend. But outside of that, really clutch hitting from Jada Coleman there to hit that walk-off, 2-out walk-off against Tennessee to remain unbeaten. Something that I'm pretty fascinated to ask Patty when we talked to her on Thursday is that you look across the country, guys, and the top 4 has remained unscathed: Oklahoma, Florida, Florida State, Alabama. Everyone else, it's a bloodbath. It upsets all over the place. Parity in college softball has really arrived. So just because the Sooners have Minnesota coming to town or they're playing Baylor, stuff like that, it's not just this procession to the Women's College World Series. Oklahoma's going to be undefeated unless they escape bet. Like, there's going to be some tough games in here, and it's good that this team's getting tested early so that there's not in that mindset of, oh, you just have to go through the motions every time they roll out there.
Absolutely. So we'll see if she can get it on Monday. Home opener against Minnesota. Ryan, I assume you'll be there to see, maybe get the record in person. It could be the one bright side of it all for her, is that she could get to get it at Marita Hines now. If Minnesota pitches to her, I don't know if they will. We'll see on Monday, I guess.
Here's the cool thing: if they don't pitch to her there, I mean, the story writes itself. She heads back to Hawaii. The first collegiate game she gets to play in Hawaii in her last ride with Oklahoma. Like, there's not a chance she's not going to break that thing in Hawaii. So if it doesn't happen on Monday, and the pitch time has not been kind to me as far as being from Oklahoma City at the radio station, driving to Norman by the time that Oklahoma dispatches of the Golden Gophers, but could set up for a pretty special storyline as she heads home, and
Sure.
The kind of circus of a week that'll be headed back to Hawaii.
If she doesn't get it this week, next week, actually, when they play, going back to Hawaii, and I don't care if they're intentionally walking her, she's going to have to swing. And I mean, like, if she's got to throw the bat out there in the other batter's box, across the plate, step across the plate if you have to, get that thing in Hawaii, because you need to. That would be a fantastic storyline.
I was going to say, just the Miguel Cabrera, just kind of step over and lean, and boom, he did it. He did it in the majors, so I'll look into it. I believe. So we'll see what happens with that. Another crack on Monday at home for them against Minnesota, looking to go to 16-0. Baseball, meanwhile, they won their series over the weekend against Northwestern State. Bad loss on Friday, but they came back out the next two. They're pitching really well. I mean, outside of a couple innings against Arizona that kind of blew up, they have not given up runs. I mean, they're pitching extremely well. Every starter's looking good. Bullpen's looking good. Chaz Martinez has been awesome so far. He had 14 Ks on Sunday, in 7 innings. He was tremendous. And now they have a huge week in Houston at the Shriners Children's Hospital Classic. They play number 8 LSU, number 23 UCLA, number 16 Tennessee. In succession, Tennessee has been scoring like literally 20 runs a game. So it's a huge week for them at Minute Maid. We're going to learn a lot about how legit they are over this coming weekend. Big time stuff for them coming up, and they're going to need to hit more. They're going to need to score more. The pitching's been great, but the offense needs to pick it up if they're going to beat teams this good, and we'll see how that goes starting on Friday.
It's the site of Dane Acker's no-hitter, isn't it?
Yes,
like
it is. Against
the
LSU.
Anniversary of it 2 years ago.
It's against LSU, too, which is who they play on Friday. So that's Jake Bennett. That's a high bar for him, but that's the bar.
Hey, whatever works, whatever rolls out there, it'll be interesting to see. This is the test, right? A lot of SEC competition early on here. So I know it's only one game sample, so it's not a series, stuff like that. But after you had last year, baseball-wise, if Skip can at least hang tight in some of these games, it's a lot of encouragement with some of the stuff that's coming down the pipe. It sounds like, as far as upgrades to the baseball facilities, things like that, once they get those plans finalized.
Absolutely. They did a nice job at Globe Life Field to start the season, beating Auburn, who, at least as of a couple of days ago, hadn't lost since that game. OU beat them on opening day. They won like 6 or 7 in a row after that. Beat Michigan. They got to a good start, but this is tougher than that. So if they can find a way to get 2 out of 3 this weekend in Houston, that would be very impressive. And I think that OU fans can really start to get excited about what this team could be, because the pitching looks legit. It's just a matter of, can that offense help them out, pretty much.
And guess what, Josh?
Yeah.
Big news, obviously. Men's and women's gymnastics are tearing up the field.
Nothing new there.
Men's golf is number 1 in the country, and I think they're undefeated in their matches. So track and field just won some Big 12 championships. So allsooners.com is where you're going to find rewrites, recaps, all that good stuff. Tennis, yes, Ryan, tennis.
How are you going to leave out my tennis teams? The women are still 3rd in the country, rolling over people. The men just goosed Texas A&M 7-0. Push number 4 Baylor to the brink. They'll be hosting number 1 in the conference slate, they'll have TCU and Texas, who are top 5 teams. Don't leave our tennis team, John. Callaway and I play a ton of tennis. That's pride and joy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So busy times in the spring. Oklahoma seems to just kind of be good at every spring sport. It's kind of been a joke before, but really, every spring sport team gets the job done. It's kind of crazy. So we have a lot to talk about, a lot to go over the next few months for sure. All right, that's it for this segment. We got Groves Bros coming up in segment 3. Great conversation with them as usual, talking about the pulse of the team and everything kind of moving forward through this home stretch against Kansas State on Saturday. Then, of course, the Big 12 tournament. So stick for that in segment 3 with the Groves Bros.
Hey guys, John Hoover for Trade Pros. Listen, they got something special going on at Trade Pros. It's the All-Star Service Agreement. Sign up now for just $25 a month, and the guys at Trade Pros will come out twice a year for routine maintenance. Plus, you get up to 2 pounds of Freon every year at no charge. And get this, if your heating or air unit needs work, it's not going to cost you anything if the repair is less than $500. And if it's more than $500, your cost comes in at just 25% of the Trade Pros price. It's the All-Star Service Program. Some conditions apply, so give the guys at Trade Pros a call, 405-639-9991, or hit them up on the website, tradeprosokc.com. Final segment of the SI Sooners podcast, and we are back for our weekly segment with the Groves brothers, Tanner and Jacob. Join us every Wednesday on the SI Sooners podcast. We call it the Groves Bros, and it's exclusive to the SI Sooners podcast thanks to our good friends at Trade Pros. So the Groves Bros brought to you by Trade Pros. If you have any heating or air issues or any questions at all, just call Trade Pros at 405-639-9991, 405-639-9991. Those guys are locally owned. They're locally operated. They will fix you up. Tanner, Jacob, welcome in. Last week I started the pod with I asked you if you were staying safe in the ice and snow. Today it's 80 degrees. Welcome to Oklahoma, guys.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. No kidding.
Yeah.
So let's get started. You guys are 2-0 since we talked last week. All right. So we'll take credit for that here on the SI Sooners podcast. Give you guys a little good mojo, right? But no, you beat Oklahoma State. And then last night in the home finale, you beat West Virginia 72-59. I thought two of the team's most kind of complete performances, in my opinion, in Big 12 conference play. Number one, because you were able to close out the wins, which is what it's all about. And you did it without the heart and soul of the team, Elijah Harkless. Now, Coach Mosier talked last night, guys, about how y'all went back and watched the quote-unquote get better tape, which I love that, from the Oklahoma State game where you guys, lost that lead in the final minutes of regulation. How did watching that tape help last night, when West Virginia got close a couple of times in the second half?
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely helps. We watch those get better tapes after every single game. It doesn't matter, win or lose. We can win by 50, and we'll still watch a get better tape, because coach's philosophy is it's never going to be perfect, and we can always improve on something. So definitely watching that game film of the Oklahoma State game was big time. It kind of helped us recognize that, once we kind of gain that lead and we're down in the final stretch of the game, we got to kind of, stay on the gas pedal and, can't play too conservative, and, we just got to play solid. We'll knock down shots. But I think the main thing for us was just our defense. In the final segment or whatever, we started, locking down again. I think they cut it. Their offense was kind of knocking us back, but then, that last 4 minutes we were able to, kind of spread it out with defense and hitting some shots. And so that was kind of a key to watching that film of Oklahoma State, and then coming out with the win against West Virginia.
Yeah, for sure. I think just like Tanner said, we kind of take pride in those get better clips. I mean, we watch them after every game. And I think that something this team has been kind of we've kind of struggled with is closing out the last 8 minutes or so of the game. And so we've really kind of been focusing on that. And, all week in practice, we were working on, situations where we're up and we have to kind of fight back. We have to deal, because we knew that West Virginia, if we were up on them late, then they're going to start running and jumping and pressuring us. And so we spent a lot of time in practice working on scenarios like that just to take care of the ball, kind of lengthen out possession, use the clock, um, and do a bunch of different things like that just to, kind of maintain the lead rather than have them go on a run and make it a ball game in the last couple minutes. And so it's really cool seeing stuff like that pay off. We watch, just like Tanner said in the Get Better tapes, we watch all kinds of stuff that we try and implement in the next game. And so we love going back and after the game in the Get Better tapes and talking about, hey, like we talked about this all week in practice, and here's where we were able to get it into the game. I mean, I think that's pretty cool, and it's just a lot of credit goes to the coaches because they kind of spark a lot of that talk, and so that's definitely been pretty cool to see this year, and especially this week, after 2 wins.
Well, and it being the home finale too, obviously that brings senior night and all those festivities. Interesting senior class for you guys, right? It's kind of an embodiment of what you've been this year with Marvin, Ethan, Jordan coming in to have their senior night after 1 year in Norman, and Emoja, a guy who's also a transfer, maybe not his last year at Oklahoma. But what was that like for you guys, like handling the emotion of that and seeing them go through that, knowing this shared experience this team has of just a ton of new faces coming in?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was cool just, the whole experience of senior night is, I've gone through a lot of them being in college for it's my 5th year now, so 5 of them, but yeah, I mean, it was definitely cool. I think it was a good send off for those guys. Just, obviously go out on a bang. Last home win was great. And, each one of those guys has had a significant role on our team, at some point this year. First off, Mo Gibson has been incredible shooter, incredibly consistent and solid for us, and he's been huge for us all year. And then you got Ethan, who's been a key player off the bench for us. Always comes in with a lot of energy, with a lot of spark, and he's great. And then you got Marvin, who obviously saved the day against Oklahoma State, had huge minutes, and we're gonna continue to look and rely on him down the stretch in the season. And then last, Jordan, who's been, playing super great lately. He's been solid for us at point guard and really distributing the ball well, getting downhill for us and making plays for other guys. And so those seniors have played a key role for our team, and they've been huge. And so, like I said, we were happy to send those guys out on a last win, and hopefully we can keep it going for them.
Yeah, I think in just, senior night in general, I mean, obviously it can be, an emotional night for some guys because it's, I think reality kind of sets in that, this is their last home game of their college career, and that, it's obviously it can be an emotional night and your whole family's there. And so kind of the pressure's on, but, I think our guys handled it great. I mean, Mo, Marvin, Jordan, Ethan, like those guys deserve, a great send off, just like they got. And so I think that was really cool to see them, with some people that they care about up there with them, and being honored before the game, and then just kind of the value they brought to the game and the value that they brought to our team all year has been pretty awesome. And so you kind of look to those older guys, the seniors, for leadership and for some playmaking because they're the veterans. They're the guys that have been through it and have played in leagues like this and against really good teams. And so they have been rock solid for us all year. And so we're lucky to have, guys like them, a senior class like them, to where, we kind of can look to them for, pretty much any situation they've pretty much already been in. And so we look to them for a lot of leadership and energy coming off the bench, just like Tanner said. And obviously I think they got exactly what they, deserved last night, which was cool to see.
Yeah, I was curious, obviously one of those guys, Jordan, he talked about last night after the game how he had already had a full-blown senior night once at Duke because he played there for, 4 years. Obviously, you guys are both just big fans of college basketball. This week is a huge week because it's Coach K's last game at Duke on Saturday. Just curious, you guys, from afar, kind of, I don't know, any thoughts on Coach K, finally hanging up this kind of walk. He's just been around for so long. And if Jordan has ever said anything about what it was like to play for him, the last 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, obviously everybody knows Coach K. He's just such a legendary, like iconic coach. I think he still holds over like almost 1,200 wins in college basketball, which is incredible, most of all time. And so he's just a historic coach. And so I think it's going to be a sad day, definitely, to see him go. But obviously, I think it's going to be a little bit of a celebration as well, just kind of celebrating his career. And we haven't. I don't think Jordan's. We've talked to him a little bit about it. I mean, we definitely kind of talked with him what it was like, playing with Zion and some of those guys that he played with. And I remember what was the year that Coach K got so mad at his team that he stripped them of all their gear and made them work out in like white t-shirts that they were not allowed to wear anything that said Duke on it. And so that was kind of one of the stories that Jordan was telling us about, and it just got some good laughs. That's one of those things that like that it just got serious. And so that's definitely a funny memory and just something kind of crazy that I don't think I've ever heard of that anywhere. But I remember when that got out a couple years ago, and so that was definitely kind of funny to hear a little bit of insight from it from Jordan about. So that's pretty much it. But yeah, definitely it'll be cool to obviously see the recognition that Coach K gets this last home game.
Yeah, no doubt. I think Coach K is obviously, Hall of Fame coach. He's an incredible coach, Coach Duke, coach for the USA teams, and he's just Hall of Famer. There's not much more else to say, but yeah, he's legendary, man. I think that trying to think, I think just ever since I was a little kid, watching Duke grow up, they've always been like a premier program. Growing up, I think in high school, I can't remember exactly what year it was, but I remember watching when I was a big Gonzaga fan back in high school. I remember watching Duke beat Gonzaga in the NCAA tournament, and that was just heartbreaking. But Duke has always been like kind of premier program, and so they've always kind of been. I've always kind of brushed them off and like, man, I hope these guys get upset and whatnot. But that just kind of speaks volumes to how good of a program they've been. They've been at the top for years, and it's pretty cool. I've seen a lot of documentaries, a lot of different stuff about Duke and Coach K, and yeah, like I said, he's just legendary. And then yeah, I think the one I don't think it's really a story, but just speaking on Coach K a little bit from Jordan. Jordan told me that I believe Coach K comes from West Point. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's right. But yeah, Jordan just said, speaking from that, it was kind of like Coach K was a little bit like a drill sergeant in kind of how he coached. He was like pretty strict, pretty down to business, and no messing around. But obviously whatever they were doing at Duke was working because they were obviously had been an incredible program for years, and so just kind of cool that this will be Coach K's last home game, but you can hate him, you can love him, but you got to respect his greatness.
Now, you guys mentioned Gonzaga, Tanner. You mentioned Mark Few, maybe. The Zags there in your hometown of Spokane. You talk about a legend of the game. You talk about an icon in college basketball. It's Mark Few. Other side of the country, not as many national championships, obviously, as Duke and Coach K. But to me, Gonzaga is one of those ultimate underdog stories. Came up from kind of, unexpected. Nobody really gave him any credit. But you look at the program and you look at the expectation where he's grown it to. Every year, it's like this now. Every year, Gonzaga, they were number one all of last year, consensus number one. They're number one again this year in the polls. Growing up in Spokane, were you guys around Coach Few much? You mentioned being a Zags fan, but were you around him much at camps or anything like that? And who were some of the coaching influences coming up through your careers?
Yeah, I mean, within Gonzaga, being from Spokane kid, Gonzaga is like the biggest thing in town, and so just in terms of Gonzaga basketball, yeah, it's been kind of cool to see their rise to stardom and just everything that they've done as of late, and so I've been a big fan ever since I was just a little kid. My parents have been big fans since they were since they were growing up and watching Gonzaga get good. I think even before Coach Few was the head coach there. And so, yeah, I mean, it's kind of cool, but I don't think I've never really been around Coach Few much, so I don't really know too much about him. But just speaking on coaches growing up, I mean, I think I've had a lot of influential coaches in my life that have helped my basketball game growing up. I think it starts really young, just with my dad. I think that my dad was my first coach, and he was just an incredible influence in my life. He's the one that really brought basketball into my life, and I just have so many memories being young, just having him out in the driveway with me and Jake, and just teaching us the game, teaching us how to shoot, how to dribble, and do everything. So yeah, I mean, I think out of just influential wise, my dad has been the biggest influence within basketball. And then, yeah, just growing up, he was my AAU coach, and he even coached me for a stint in high school too. And so, yeah, I just would like to speak on my dad a bit, just because it's kind of funny because we'll always get reporters asking questions about who's the best player in the family. Well, me and Jake will always say mom is and all this and that, but I gotta give that you gotta give a lot of credit to my dad too for he was really the one that instilled the game in Jake and I, and taught us. And he was the first one that was really hard on us about basketball and just taught us how to be tough, how to love the game. And so I just wanted to speak on that for a bit too.
Yeah, for me, I'd say definitely the same thing. Kind of with the going back to the Zags. I mean, I think it's hilarious now because obviously, we play at the level to where they're like a pot, like we could match up with them and actually play against them. But like in high school, obviously, I was in growing up, obviously, just a big Zags fan. Then even at Eastern Washington too, it's like obviously Eastern first and everything, but late into March, when we're not playing and the Zags are, you're kind of rooting for them and cheering for them. But now that we're at a level where we could match up against them, we could play them, we could compete with them. It's like it's kind of funny just how the tide has kind of turned. We went from like fans of them, and now we're like, it's kind of weird being like a big fan of people who are kind of on the same level as you. You know what I mean? And so it's
Yeah.
definitely been interesting just how that transition's happened. And then yeah, going off Tanner, I mean, I think that obviously our dad is just someone who's challenged us from the beginning with basketball. I mean, he was the first one that kind of made things hard on us, and kind of created the self discipline that Tanner and I have, just through teaching us and helping us get better, so much through the game. I mean, we give mom a lot of credit for being a hooper back in her day, but I think dad gets just as much credit, just because he's obviously made Tanner and I the players who we are. All the way through AAU, he coached us for, I mean, literally all of our life until we came to college. I guess he was a part of K through eighth grade basketball, YMCA. He coached us, and then even he was on staff 3 of my 4 years in high school. And so, he's been a huge part of just the way that our game's developed and how we've grown. And I think just, obviously he was a former college coach. He's coached high school basketball. So he's coached at pretty much all the levels you can coach at. And so just kind of learning from him and seeing the game that he sees the game, like the same way that he sees the game, has been really cool to see. And I think that, just as like IQ wise, he's been, huge in teaching us how to play, teaching us fundamentals, how to shoot, dribble. Um, and so that's been really cool. I mean, I think dad gets a lot of credit for that for sure. And so, yeah, he's been very, very influential on Tanner and I just growing up in the driveway shooting, and little brother too. I mean, he works out with my little brother every night in the driveway. And he's still coaching his AAU team, and so he's been huge in not only Tanner and I, but our little brother as well. I mean, he loves coaching, and he loves obviously us, and so it's really the best of both worlds when he gets to coach us and kind of help us and just grow our love for the game.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And so a guy that's influencing your game right now, right, Porter Moser, you guys have got the rest of this season, obviously, but then the eligibility to return next year. So what does that kind of look like for you guys as far as prepping for this off season, what those workouts are going to look like? And then I also got to toss this in there. Tanner, we saw last night you have that big dunk, get fouled, hit the floor, pop up. Were you popping the headband? Do we have more celebrations coming down the pipe next year as well? Is that a key part of your off-season workout regimen as well?
Well, yeah, man. I threw first poster of the season, so I had to, on your head. That's a little celebration I got going, and so had to pull that one out for the first time, I think, in a long time. So that kind of felt good, but no, in terms of the off season, I'm excited to get better. I'm excited to hit the weights hard and just become a better basketball player overall. One of my biggest things is just kind of transforming my body. I think that's going to be a huge key for me in this off season. I think that just after playing this year, definitely in Big 12, you got a lot of physical, strong guys that are going to be playing at my position, and so definitely need to get a lot stronger. I think that that's going to be the main thing for me is just change my diet and transform my body. I think just gonna try to lift 5 days a week and eat the best food I can in order to be the best product, put out the best product that I can. And then basketball wise, I need to work on a lot of things too, like ball handling and my passing abilities, and just keep repping out my shot too. I think that if I can handle the ball a little bit better, it'll help me, especially in the offense where it's ran through the five a lot. I think that me being able to handle the ball well will help our team and just help me in terms of skill development. And so I think that I think I'm looking forward to this off season and making a huge jump and coming back next year strong. And I'm just super excited. I can't wait. I think that a lot of hoopers love the off season, and some of them really embrace it and some of them don't. And so for me, that's going to be a huge key, is just to embrace it, take it day by day, and get better every single day.
Yeah, for sure. I think Tanner hit it. I mean, I think a lot of we'll be kind of working towards the same thing. I mean, this league is so physical, especially at the five and the four and even sometimes the three position. I mean, you got guys who are 220, 225 and just built. And so I think a big part of this offseason is just going to be kind of changing my body, getting bigger, faster, stronger, and just kind of working out. And then as far as hoops goes, I think just being consistent, getting in the gym every day, continuing to work on my shot, be more consistent, obviously shooting the ball. And then I think that a lot of it for me is just comes down to guard skills, just continuing to work on, dribbling, maybe coming off ball screens, passing, and just, kind of being the full package as far as being a guard goes. I think that I've already been kind of talking about it with some of our coaches, just, how big of an off season this is for me, and just kind of some of the goals that I have for next season and the things that I want to kind of accomplish this off season. And so I've definitely got my work cut out for me. I don't know if I'm definitely going to have to probably make some sacrifices. Not as much time on the golf course this spring, probably not as much time fishing this spring. Probably going to have to spend a lot of those days in the Lloyd Noble Center working on my game. And so, that's fine with me. I got a lot of life left to golf in. So that's good.
Absolutely. So obviously, you guys, I'm sure you're looking forward to an off season that's going to look a lot more normal in theory, hopefully, and actually with Coach Moser, the whole spring and summer and all that stuff. But to pull it back to this season, because obviously there's still meat left on the bone here. You got one more game against Kansas State on Saturday, a place that Oklahoma hasn't won in a really long time, just the program. And then also Big 12 tournament, potential postseason. It feels like both you guys are playing your best basketball right now, both you guys individually. Where have you guys seen kind of an uptick in terms of what is noticeably gotten better, in the last month or so? Because like I said, it feels like, Jake, you're hitting the shots from deep, at a much higher clip. Tanner, you've led the team in points and rebounds last couple of games. Just how do you guys keep it going? Where have you improved, and how do you continue to improve down, the last handful of games here?
I think for me, as far as, just hoops goes, I think that just kind of finding my stride. I went from being kind of a role player that was, playing spot minutes here and there, and then obviously EJ's season-ending injury, it's kind of one of those things where I step into the role and I'm kind of thrown into the fire, and I'm playing 30 minutes a game now. And so I think that has a lot to do with it. Just kind of finding my stride, being comfortable out there on the floor, which has been huge for me. And so I think that's huge. And then just, I think my confidence throughout the past few games, obviously, I think it started in Iowa State when I came out and, I hit my first couple and shot the ball well. And then Oklahoma State, I hit my first couple. And then even last night, I, shot it pretty well from deep. And so I think that's been really good because that's something that our team's going to need. I think that we need to be able to shoot the ball well, especially going on the road to Kansas State. Like you said, our program hasn't won there in a long time. And so huge game for us. We're excited. I know the coaches are working hard and the players are working hard as well, kind of, getting the scout ready and, trying to figure out a way to win that game. And so I think just, my confidence and, just kind of getting the opportunity to play minutes and have a scoring role on this team has been definitely the make or break for me for sure.
Yeah, I'd say for me, just in terms of the team, I think that for us, I think that I can sense just in our practices and just the way we come out in games, we've been a lot more locked in and a lot more connected, especially on the defensive end. I think we call them gaps where you get 3 stops in a row, and as a team goal for a game, usually it's 7. And I think against West Virginia we had 6 in the first half, so it's like you can sense those little things starting to come together. We're really locking in on defense in practice. We're taking it serious every day, and I think it's just a matter of we know that we need to win these games, and so we're going to do everything in our power that we can in order to win these games. And at Kansas State, it's going to be a huge game. I think that I heard that Coach Kruger never even won a game at Kansas State while he was here, which is crazy. And so it's going to be on their senior night too, and so it's going to be a huge game. The crowd's going to be rocking. And I think that's going to be, that's going to be a fun environment, and we're looking forward to the challenge. We can't wait because, right now in terms of the season where we stand, our backs against the wall a little bit, and people are counting us out, but we love that we kind of are in this position because we got nothing to lose, and so we're just we're trying to win all these games, and so we can't wait. We're looking forward to the challenge on Saturday. And then in terms of me, I think that my physicality has been great. Coach always speaks on that a lot, and I think that when I'm able to rebound the basketball, it kind of gets me going. Doesn't matter if I'm scoring the points offensively, but when I'm rebounding the ball and playing good defense, then I have the confidence. Coaches give me confidence to keep going, and then by the end of that game against West Virginia, I don't even know how many points I had, but then I went on a little run and started knocking down shots and kind of turned it around a little bit and ended up with a double-double. And so that's been huge. I just think I got to continue to be physical, continue to play great defense, and continue to rebound the ball, and then the scoring will come naturally. But yeah, like I said, Saturday is going to be huge. We're looking forward to the Big 12 tournament as well. And, once we get there, anything can happen. Literally anything can happen. We have 4 top 15 wins. We can get a couple more. You never know. And so we're definitely looking forward to the next couple weeks of basketball in March.
Well, Tanner and Jacob, you said it best right there. 1 game left in the regular season. I can't believe how fast it's gone. Saturday at Kansas State, and then the Big 12 tournament right around the corner next week. Next week is the Big 12 tournament. And then we'll see what's after that. Can you believe how fast it's gone your first year here?
It's crazy. It's crazy how quick it's gone. It's nuts. It just seems like yesterday we were catching our first flight down to Norman for the first time in June. So, yeah, it's crazy.
Well, thanks again to Trade Pros for sponsoring the Groves Bros on the SI Sooners podcast. You need to give those guys a call, 405-639-9991 for all your heating and air needs, or just go to tradeprosokc.com. Don't forget to be back here next Wednesday now as Tanner and Jacob join us for another exclusive segment with the Groves Bros. As always, you can listen to that one and all episodes of the SI Sooners podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Google, iHeart, wherever you get your podcasts, or if you have an Amazon-enabled device, just say, Alexa, play the SI Sooners podcast. go to our website, allsooners.com. You'll find it there. Click on the player, listen on your phone, your tablet, or your computer. And of course, we simulcast the video version over on my YouTube channel, John Hoover Media. We'd appreciate it if you guys like, comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Obviously, that helps us out a lot. For Josh Callaway, for Ryan Chapman, and of course, the Groves Bros, Tanner and Jacob, I'm John Hoover. See you guys.